the opportunity to use tools like Ryza for Media to engage clients dynamically, live, sharing their own data, syndicated data, tying the two pieces together so that they can see the result of targeted television advertising, advertising on the internet, using the opportunity to use specific cable networks, specific websites to reach the demographics, the psychographics, the right geographies that they need to reach to help promote products and services that they offer. An example of using the tool happened recently. About a year ago, I was asked to join an auto dealer and his marketing person to discuss strategy, to talk about future advertising possibilities. For a lot of dealerships, what I didn't realize was that when we walked into the room to have this 3 or 4 person conversation, I literally walked into a training facility where every GM from every dealership, there were probably 13, 14 there, sitting classroom style, looking for some specific presentations about their dealership, their success rates, their loss, their competitors. So what ensued was about a 60 to 90 minute session of me just dynamically asking questions of each dealer that represented Ford, Nissan, Mazda, VW. I was able to show them dynamically, live, the trending of their business, the cars they had increased sales in, the decreased sales in, who was taking their business, who they were taking from. But most importantly, I was able to show them what part of the market was most important for them to stay within, because they were getting 75 to 90% of their business there. And I was able to reinforce the value of the networks that their target audience were watching on cable, as well as the websites that they were cruising and surfing on the internet.
The kind of work that Seek does overall is helping our clients deeply understand who their consumers are so that we can meet their needs. And we do that through empathy. And we believe that empathy is the way to get to those deeper needs and those opportunities. And when we connect empathically, and then we build ideas through that empathic lens, those ideas get better traction, that we can get speed to market, and they become an emotional connection with the consumer. And so this is at the foundation of how we operate at Seek and the kind of programs that we're developing. So we developed an empathic innovation program that we call Red Door, and it takes our clients all the way from training on what empathy is and how it works, through a research process of getting those insights, identifying the key tensions that exist in the lives of our consumers, and translating those tensions into ideas through various innovation methodologies, and then transforming those into stories. We tell stories through video and through creative media outlets. And we also take those ideas then and transform those ideas into something that is compelling, something that is a sort of a sticky idea that then agencies can build on and develop those ideas further into execution. Most of the work we do is front end of innovation, so the insights into ideas, and then typically they're handed off into the execution phase.
One of the key initiatives we're working on at Symphony Advanced Media is tracking over-the-top streaming video on demand. For those of you that know about us, we have a cross-media technology that allows for a full day-in-the-life view of consumers. We've been tracking linear TV, but many other people do that as well. What we have done recently is extended our coverage. So for any program, Blacklist, Scandal, Big Bang Theory, whatever, we have the ability of, inside of our SaaS cloud-based platform, our clients have the ability to track what was the mobile streaming dimension, what was the incremental reach that was reached in addition to linear, and what about connected devices, and what about video demand. This is one of the most significant sweet spots that we are currently addressing in the marketplace that is significantly in demand by all of the key media players, cable players, etc., who are moving aggressively in this fast-growing, changing paradigm of media, but they're struggling to figure out how to monetize these assets because currency doesn't quite exist to help them do that. We are planning to fill the void from the standpoint of providing critical KPIs and metrics that advertisers, agencies, and media companies can increasingly use on an ongoing basis to understand what was the incremental aggregate reach, frequency, ratings, etc. on any given program.
We've just completed the second phase of long-term effects. So at the ARF AM9 conference last year, we shared our first body of work on long-term effects that CBS and Kellogg's sponsored. And that created quite a bit of fervor in the market. And listening to all of those the points of view, we realized that it was really, if we really wanted something that everybody would use, we would have to go and create, we'd have to listen and make changes. So at Dave Poltrack's prompting, the two of us listened to 7 or 8 other researchers. We listened to Ross Link and Neil Cantor from Inside Nielsen. They had a lot of concerns. We listened to Bill Harvey, Byron Sharp. We listened to Jim Donius and Mike Hansen. All people with lots of rich, deep experience on long-term effects. And what we came away with was a list of 7 or 8 things that really needed to be addressed. And we did. We took each one of them and took them into what we're doing. So we've transformed LTE1 into LTE2. So what does LTE2 include? One of the first suggestions was for validation. So we've run a major validation against our methodology using the 1991 Len Lodish methodology of matched households. And you see that what we're capturing is similar to what was captured through Len Lodish's method. The other changes we made, we were told to be very careful about what's long-term and what's short-term. If you're dividing one by the other, clearly your numbers are going to be different. So that had, by instead of short-term being 4 weeks, short-term is now the longest one can measure it directly, which is about 12 weeks. So by extending that and reducing the long-term to 1 year, that brought the numbers down a bit. But what brought them down the most, actually substantially, was a suggestion that Neil Cantor had, where we are looking at moving consumers up their loyalty path. So what's the value of moving somebody from buying it once in a row versus twice in a row? And you see dramatic increases in their future purchasing. And what Neil pointed out is that we weren't subtracting the zeros, the people who didn't buy. So when you subtract the zeros, your trial goes dramatically down and your switchers go down. But that's one of the key pieces that happened. And that was the biggest impact on bringing the numbers down. What was also pointed out is that we were looking at all exposures that happened over a year. If we just focus on the campaign period, the numbers go up. So that by looking at when advertising was happening, that means all the things that are marketing in the market are happening in synergy. The numbers went up dramatically. And at the end of the day, what did we come up with? The multiplier across the 31 studies that we've done is 2.04. So it's around 2. So it's back in the neighborhood of what people would have expected. Bill Harvey said that it was too black boxy, and he suggested that we get rid of the arbitrary numbers that were black box. So we did. Instead of having 4 weeks as our pre-period, we extended that to as long as you could measure of 12 weeks. We were looking at trial and depth of repeat, and we had capped the depth of repeat at 6. We extended it as far as we could measure. So we got rid of any black boxy kind of arbitrary sets of numbers. recommendation to measure other media, and we're really excited about doing that. That's certainly on the game plan. Byron Sharp also said, actually, you know, I make light of it, but it was a very valuable insight, that there are a lot of things that are not being measured, and we have to recognize that we're not capturing everything. We only know what we can measure. I'm proud of the fact that we only report what we can measure. I mean, we are a measurement company, so I'm glad we're not making up numbers. But it's true that we don't capture everything, and so we need to recognize that the values that we're reporting are from what's measured. So the study we're going to show tomorrow not only takes us through this, but then we look at the 31 studies that we did, and we said, what could we learn from that? Which ones had high long-term multipliers? Which ones had short? And some of the findings are, if you have a strong short-term effect, you're going to have a stronger long-term effect. So short-term drives long-term, and that makes perfect sense. When you think about if the ad connects the consumer to the brand on the short term, that connection is going to carry forward in the long term. So that's kind of what we're measuring, is that connection. So that makes sense. We also saw that brands that had high dollar volume per week had higher long-term effects. And I conjecture that some of that might be purchase cycle, because if you're buying the brand every week, you're being reminded, and your loyalty pays off more. There's a faster flip, you know, it's a faster switch. But I think dollars also, it's more important how you spend them. You know, if you're spending lots of money, it carries a little more oomph to it, and both are true. So brand dollars has a higher, and of that a big portion of that is purchase cycle. Interestingly, GRPs do not make a difference, and that's because, I mean, it's zero R squared, so zero, not zero. So that is really because the GRPs determine your short-term effect, right? So a household has to be exposed, and once they're exposed, they have a short-term effect. The long-term multiplier is based off that short-term. So your GRPs are driving how many dollars you get, but the multiplier stays the same no matter how many GRPs you buy. So those are the kinds of insights that we're working on and really excited about.
Each of these 5 steps in the CPA process can be seen as addressing a specific question regarding the campaign. Step 1, test your message. Start with research confirming that you have effective ads that communicate a compelling message. Exposure to advertising on television is only going to yield results if the ad is effective and the message resonates with the audience. And in most cases, the ad has to not only be effective, it has to also be more effective than the competitive ad, if it is expected to generate incremental sales. Step number 2, maximize your weekly reach. Determine if your campaign maximizes reach among your target market on a weekly basis during the campaign period, not just on a full campaign basis. We have noted that many advertisers who are leaning their television mix, buying less and less prime time, argue that doing so only minimally reduces the overall reach of their campaign. But for a 6 or 12-week campaign for a product in which consumer transactions are taking place every week, is overall reach a relevant measure? Should the proximity of the exposure to the purchase occasion be taken into consideration? Step 3, get the most out of recency. A comprehensive competitive schedule analysis will tell you how you did against the goal of reaching the greatest number of category buyers as close to the purchase occasion as possible and after the last exposure to your competitor's message. Erwin Efron's concept of recency has stood the test of time. As I will soon demonstrate, achieving this goal is unlikely to be the case with a schedule lacking in high-rated programs. Step 4, precisely target potential customers. Ensure that your campaign reaches the right audience. Today, that audience can be defined in precise purchaser profiles, as opposed to broad-based, increasingly irrelevant age, gender, demographic trends. CBS has purchased single-source product usage user profiles from a range of suppliers. That includes the comprehensive Nielsen Catalina Solutions and Nielsen Buyer Insight databases. We can not only tell advertisers how many of our viewers are purchasers in their categories, we can tell them how many of them buy their brand and the volume of their purchases. There is no need to rely on age, gender surrogates. Step 5, consider context. Since ad performance is affected by context, determine how many of your ads are aired in the top programs with highly engaged audiences, exposed to a limited number of high-quality advertising messages. Did those premium exposures deliver extraordinary results? That is the framework of the campaign performance audit.